Okay, so for the chairs, the first thing we did was remove the old cushions. And I had my husband help me because there was a million staples in these.
So working on, Mama.
A cushion, girl. Not the most fun I've ever had.
Do you need this part?
Well, we can have that.
Yay!
Okay, and as you can see, my daughter was helping me. Ignore my husband's slippers. I'm wearing his slippers. Anyway, all I did here was super self-explanatory. I just took the old base of the cushion and traced it so I could get the size of the cushion to go back on the seat cushion. So anyway, I got that all cut up and then took it to my table and hot glued, because I wasn't going to hot glue it, but I seen that they had glue on it before, and I thought, well, that's a pretty good idea. So I just took hot glue and glued it on there. And please excuse my basement. You can see in the background of all of this, we work down here, like I craft down here and my husband does stuff down here. And then our kids like run around and play. So the background is like really messy and I'm sorry about that. But like I said, we are always down here doing something. Okay, so anyway, I went ahead and cut the cushion, or cut the fabric to the size of the cushion. And then got it all in there nice and tight, flipped it over, and I started stapling it on there. And as you can see here, the foam kind of sticks out over the edges of the wood piece a little bit. And I did that on purpose on this one because you can see there in the side background, I had already done one and I didn't do this. And you could almost, like, I got it very close to the same size as the cushion, as the wood. So and you could like almost feel the wood. So I wanted the cushion to be, you know, I wanted it to be extra cushiony so that you wouldn't have to be like sitting on wood, like in the wood corner. So if that makes sense, I don't know if I explained that good enough, but you know what I mean. So anyway, I just go around, staple all this on there. And then on the corners, you'll just have to watch what I do. The corners were a little tricky, but not really. I just pulled them in and then like pulled them in one way and then tightened them and pulled them in the other way and stapled them down. And my staples weren't going in very good. So I just took my hammer and hammered them down in when they didn't go in. So like, okay, here's a corner. Like I said, folded it down, stapled it, pulled it in a little bit more on the like curvy part and just kept stapling it. And then I went ahead and went to this corner and just keep stapling all the way around. Okay, and as you can see here, I just took my scissors and cut off the excess fabric. And if you were gonna do this like super properly, you should probably get some of this upholstery fabric backing stuff and put it on there. But we're keeping this and I'm not selling it or anything. So I didn't, because I didn't want to spend any more money, to be honest. Okay, and then to paint the chairs, I cleaned them down really, really well with White Lightning cleaner. It's a Dixie Belle cleaner. And then you probably should prime this type of wood with a primer, either like Dixie Belle's primer or just any primer like from Lowe's or something. But I didn't. I just went in with the cotton color there and started painting. Because like I've said before in some of my videos, I don't mind if bleed through comes through on projects like this, because I'm gonna distress this and antique it and make it look kind of old anyway. But if you didn't want that and you wanted like a super white, solid, clean and crisp look, definitely prime it first and clean it really, really, really well. Okay, and as you can see, my kids were really, really helpful today. Then another thing about bleed through is sometimes you can get like a pinkish red bleed through, or sometimes you get like a brownish yellowy bleed through, and there was a few spots on one of the chairs that did end up having like the yellowish bleed through. Now, if I had gotten like the pinkish red kind, I would have definitely taken some primer and gone back in and primed it where that happened. But it's just an extra step, and I was willing to take the chance at just doing 2 coats on these chairs rather than like 3 or 4. with using primer. So anyway, just a personal preference, but that's just a little tip if for something, you know, that you might want to know. And right there you can see I had to be mean mom and take the paintbrush away because I was losing my patience with the help. So anyway, I ended up doing 2 coats of cotton on this, and that was enough coverage where it was completely covered. It looked good to me. And I can't remember the exact proper wait time that you're supposed to wait in between coats, but basically what I did was start at the bottom, and by the time I got to the top of the chair, the bottom was pretty much dry. So I just went ahead and did my second coat. You know, like I said, if you're going to do it super properly, you're probably supposed to wait like, I don't know, a few hours in between. I'll have to read the label again, but I don't remember. Okay, so then to do this little distressing part that I did here on the backs of the seats, I took the colors Putty and the color Coffee Bean, and I just very, very, very lightly dry brushed them into this little middle section you'll see here. And like I said, you'll just have to watch this technique, and you kind of have to bear with the process because it looks crazy for a few minutes, and then, you know, you just keep blending it. I kept a water bottle nearby so that I could like wet it if I needed to, because that just helps it blend and glide a little better. And also I'm using a chip brush because chip brushes are just better all around for any type of distressing. So definitely use a chip brush for this part. I used my nice brush though to actually paint the chair, and I definitely recommend a nice brush for stuff like that, and then a chippy brush for distressing. Okay, and then I took some 60 grit sandpaper and distressed in all the areas, like all the edges and all the areas, you know, that typically like get wear and tear over time. And then when I show you the close-up picture of this, you'll see what the 60 grit, the effect the 60 grit sandpaper gives the chair. If you don't like this type of distressing, you should probably use a lower grit, like 100, 120, or I guess a higher, sorry. But yeah, this is the effect and the look that I like, especially on the table. I use this grit, and it gives it kind of like a scratchy look, which some people probably don't like, but I do. And here's a close-up look at how the chairs turned out, and stay tuned for the end because I have all the pictures at the end of the tables and the chairs together.
Hello everybody, I'm getting ready to sand down this table in my garage. We're getting rid of our table that we currently have in our garage, or I mean our dining room, and we're switching to this table. I think it's really pretty, and I'm really excited to redo it, so stay tuned.
Okay, and then I took my finger and used some stainable wood putty and filled in these little gashes because they were obviously too deep for me to sand out with my sander. And as you can see, I wasn't done sanding the table, but I went ahead and did this before I was completely done that way because, you know, after the wood putty dries, you have to go back over and sand it. So that's what I did. I just filled in these gaps and let it dry. for a day, I think, and then I came back the next day and sanded off the rest of the table. So really on this part you should probably use a wood putty tool, but I didn't have mine nearby. So anyway, and then moving on, this little part I just left in here because my husband had to tighten up the bottom of the table, because like where you can see where he's working at, there was 4 screw holes, but this table only had 2 screws holding it on each side. So right there you can see there was only 2 screws, but there was 4 holes. So he had to just find some screws we had on hand, and he just tightened it back up, so then the table was really nice and sturdy. Okay, and then I took a white lightning cleaner and cleaned the whole bottom of this table nice and good, and you can see here it was super filthy. So this step is super important, because you obviously don't want to like paint that dirt down into your piece. So anyway, definitely clean. Okay, and moving on to the fun part, I took the color chocolate, and that's the color I painted the whole bottom of this table. And I left this part of me opening it in here because I feel like it's super satisfying when you first open paint. Maybe that's just me, but anyway, and then I took my spray bottle and got my little paintbrush wet. And PSA, this paintbrush, I just got it and I was really excited to try it out, but this is definitely not the one you want to use for a surface like this curved, where there's curves like this and grooves and stuff. I'll show you in a minute my other paintbrush, but yeah, I was just really excited to try this one out, and I'm gonna leave in the description box like all the paintbrushes that I've used and what they're good for. I'll explain it in the description box. It'll just be easier to type it out than talk about it in the video. So anyway, I got this all covered in 1 coat of chocolate, and then you'll see in this video I move on to the top here in a minute, because I let the bottom dry, and then I worked on the top a little bit, and then I come back and forth, and then I had to wait for everything to dry and come back the next day. So you'll see back and forth here in a little bit, so just bear with me. This brush here is what I recommend for this bottom half of the table where there's all these curves and grooves. This is called a mini angle, and like I said, I definitely recommend this one more. This is one of my favorite brushes in general. But yeah, I just get this all covered in chocolate, and then like I said, here I go to the top, cleaning it off with water. Okay, and then moving on to staining the top, I took the color Tobacco Road, this Voodoo stain that Dixie Belle sells. I have never used this before, but I didn't end up liking this. So you'll see here, I just used it for like a little bit of the table, and then I stopped and I got out my other stain and used it instead. But I did leave this part in here because I do take the Tobacco Road and basically use it as like a base coat, sorta, for the majority of the table. I didn't do this whole side that I'm working on now with it, but then you'll see I just used it as like a bottom coat, and I just wanted it all to look uniform. That's why I do end up using it underneath this stain. But like I said, here on this middle part of the table, I don't actually end up using it. So anyway, you just have to bear with me, and I wasn't too worried about this underneath. I knew I was going to paint this white and make it like a wood look, so I didn't really worry about what the stain looked like underneath. So basically, you just have to bear with me on this part. It's not proper. Like if I was going to actually stain this top as like a stained top, I would have never done it like this. I would have never done it like this. So I'll just have to come up with a video of me actually staining a top to show you what I would really do, but this isn't the process for that, so don't follow these steps if you want your tabletop to be stained, only stained. So anyway, just a little disclaimer. And then I do throw some more of that Voodoo stain in there just to kind of blend it. Like I said, I wasn't worried about what this underneath coat looked like. I just wanted the base of this table to have a dark color, so that's why I did all this kind of a weird way. And then moving on to this side, I just, like I said, laid down that Voodoo stain first, so that I would have like a base coat. And actually, this ends up making this look really, really nice. I'll show you here at the end. As you can see there, my little helper was making me a little nervous by that stain. I was like, oh my goodness, don't spill that whole jug of stain, boy. And here to rub in this stain, I'm just using a paper towel. And I forgot to mention that I'm putting all of this on with a chip brush. Chip brushes are my favorite for putting on stain. Anyway, so then I just took the stain and got a real nice thick layer on first, and then wiped that all in. Okay, and I wanted to show you here for a second. If you look at the two sides of the table, the one I'm working on now is where I used the tobacco road underneath, and then the other side over there, right across from where you'd put the leaf, is where I didn't. And you can tell like the different texture. So yeah, I would definitely almost recommend like a pre-stain, or even just doing that kind of a stain first, because it just looks so nice. And then all I'm doing here is just dry brushing on some more stain, and I love to do that. I think it gives it a really nice look. Okay, and then I let all that stain dry for a whole day, and I come back in and I start using the white Voodoo stain that I have, and I just dry brushed it on, or I brushed it on with a brush. And here in a minute, I'll show you, I start using the woody grain tool. Okay, so as you can see, this is why I wasn't super worried about what the stain job looked like, because this is what I had in my head that I was going to do. Okay, and then I take my woody grain tool, and basically you have to like place it down and then rock it. There's lots of YouTube videos on this if you need a better tutorial. Okay, and then I had to think about whether or not I liked the top, so I moved on to the bottom, and I took the colors Putty and Coffee Bean, which are the only other colors I use on this table. And I'm going to link all this, like I said, and put information in the description box, so check that out if you need these colors and everything. But I took Putty and just dry brushed it across, and then I'd blend in some Coffee Bean, which is the darker color that looks almost black. And like I said, I just do this until I get it to where I like the way it looks. There's really no rhyme or reason. It just kind of keep doing it until I like it. Like I said, just dry brush it back and forth. I use the same paintbrush. I keep my water bottle nearby, and sometimes I squirt it if I need to. Okay, and then back to the top. I decided I liked it, and I came up with a plan. So I got back into it, and here we go. I just used that. Oh, and that brush that I used, that works really well for this top, actually. It's a good one for flat surfaces. So anyway, I take my woody grain tool and I just do this rocking motion and make it look like wood. And you can see my woody grain tool, like right there, kind of messes up. So I just go back in midway and fix it. I don't think you're supposed to do that. I think you're supposed to just like go all one way. But, you know, I just kind of do things. I'm not a professional. I just do what I like, and I do what works for me. And it works out, I think. So anyway, I just keep on keeping on here with this process. I'll just let you watch some of it so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, and then I slowed this part down over here on the other side because I wanted you to see the way that wood looks where I use the dry brush technique and use the two colors of stain. It gives it a really cool look. So if you are going to stain your top, I always use two colors, and I think it looks really nice. So anyway, I got this on here, and when I started using my wood grain tool, I don't think you're supposed to do this, but I did it through the whole process. I took the wood grain tool and, you know, did my thing with it, and then afterwards I took that brush that I'm using there and like dry brushed it real lightly back over top the wood grain because it was real, it was like raised up. So I didn't like that, and I just kind of used the brush right here to like smooth it back over.
And it kept the wood grain on there, so it worked out fine. But yeah, that's what I did. Okay, and then moving on to personally my favorite part, putting glaze on the table and distressing it. So I decided I didn't like this fully white like it was so bright white, and I just don't love that for myself in my house. So anyway, I took this glaze, Vandyke brown glaze from Dixie Belle, in my chip brush, and I just started out really lightly, and then I got more comfortable. But I took white also, so I could have it if I like use too much. And during this part, I go back and forth between using sandpaper on the edges and then going back and forth and using my glaze. And like I told you guys before, this is 60 grit sandpaper, and you can see where it kind of gives it like a scratched look. So if you don't want that, definitely do a different grit, like a 100, 120 or whatever. I mentioned that before. But I like this look. I like how it looks really rough. But anyway, so then back to the glaze. This process, you'll just have to watch what I'm doing, but I just always very lightly dip my brush in the glaze, like barely. You barely get anything on there. And then I had a dry paper towel, but I also had a baby wipe, and I was taking baby wipes, and baby wipes will really wipe it back off really well. So I definitely recommend that. And then, like I said, I had my white Voodoo stain on hand. That way, like if it got on too thick, I could like just kind of blend it back off and wipe it back off. So this is just kind of like a personal preference type of thing. You just have to like keep doing it and look at it and just decide what you like. I don't like there to be like harsh lines. Like, you know, when you first lay that glaze down, it's very harsh. I don't love that. I like the color of the glaze, how it has like an antique look, and I just like the effect. So anyway, you just gotta keep going until you get it the way you like it. Personal preference. See, that right there is what I would consider like too harsh. It's very harsh lines, and obviously I don't like that. So I'll take the white glaze or the white stain and go back in, soften it up, and then also take the wipes, kind of soften that up as well. And that's just all I do here. Okay, and then moving on to the last part, we're going to seal the table with matte polycrylic. And I actually didn't turn my video on for this part, and I had already sealed the table with one layer. So that's what you'll see here. I'd already had one layer on it, and I was just kind of going back through and touching up a few areas that was already dry over on that side. And I use my, this brush is called a mini, I think. Anyway, I'll link it in the description box. It is a great brush for sealing. It doesn't leave streaks as long as you, like, you know, do it right, and it looks great. But here's a look at how everything turned out, and I absolutely love it here in my dining room. I think it looks so nice, and I was so skeptical at first, but I think it turned out really well. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to try and help. And thank you all so much for watching. As always, I hope this helps. And if you're not already, definitely go follow me on Instagram or Facebook, but especially Instagram. I post pictures of this kind of stuff all the time, and I feel like you can see them a little better in my pictures on there. But anyway, thanks so much for watching.